Now the other thing that I did with this chart here, I've got all these different columns, and you might be kind of wondering, why did I bother doing that? Well, there's a very good reason, and I encourage you to do the same. All of the data is the same, except I keep changing the stock price. Now what I'm trying to find out is, what is the risk variable of getting a margin call? So in the first column we've got 10,000 shares, $6, 50% is the margin. So the maximum margin is 50% of 60,000, so 30,000. How much is my margin debt? 10,000 right across the board. Margin available is 20,000. And you can go all the way down, everything is fine, no problem. But if the stock drops to $5, now my margin debt is still the same, which is in C12. However, what is my risk? My margin available is dropping. Now why is my margin available dropping? Well, let's just do the math. What is the margin percent available? 50%. So 10,000 shares times 5 is 50. So 50% of $50,000 is 25. My margin debt is the same. So the margin available is now dropped to 15. 25 minus 10 is 15. If that stock subsequently dropped to 4, you can see that my margin available is constantly in decline. And it went all the way down to 3. And at this point, I still have 5,000 margin. The problem is that my margin percent ratio is getting higher, and that's a warning sign. Now I have another warning sign that can be quite serious. Usually, depending on your brokerage firm, if the price of the stock drops below 3, there may not be any margin available, and you would generate a margin call even though you actually have, according to the math here, this is on a closing basis, not intraday, by the way. So a stock could be trading at $2.90, so there's no margin to buy, but they may not call your margin because in fact it's not the closing price. But depending again on your firm, if there is no margin below 3 and it closes below 3, I would assume it's a judgment call on their part. They might call that margin, or if the amount is not that great, maybe they won't. Depends on a lot of variables and circumstances, but that's a warning sign nonetheless. Now I want to show you something that's a little bit cool. You can see where the mouse is. Let's just get rid of, I'm going to highlight that whole section there, and I'm going to get rid of that. And what I'm going to try and show you to do, just watch the mouse. What you do is you highlight the first cell that you want to copy, hold down the left button, and I've now highlighted from D5 all the way down to D19. And then I go over here. I don't know, I'll have to maybe just change the screen just a bit so you can see that. Now I'm just going to focus on this here for a couple seconds just to show you. Right here, where it looks like two pieces of paper, you click there once you highlighted this section here, and then you click there, and then you can see this is the paste button, and the one right beside it is the copy button. See, it's reasonably clear on the screen. And then once you've done click the copy button, go to the location where you want to actually make a copy, just click, go back, and then click the paste button, and you now have another column. So you could have 10, 30, 40 columns. It's entirely up to you. Let me just do that once more so you can see what I'm referring to. So it's now blank. First we highlight down, and you'll be able to see it's very clear. It's going to be all shaded. Click the copy button. Highlight the square or the cell where you want the copy to begin. Click on the paste button, and now you have an entirely new row. Now if you can focus on F column, I don't know if you can see that. Yes, you can. It's not really clear. Maybe I'm just going to move the, well, maybe, you know what, I think I'll keep it here because we have all of our data right here, and that way I'll just make a change right in this row here. Okay, what I'm going to do here, this is in the B column. I'm going to keep changing the prices here so you'll get to see how the entire column will change. And what are we looking for? We're looking for the point at which you may risk getting a margin call. So let's go down to the $3 range, and you can see the data. 10,000 times 3 is 30,000. The maximum margin is 50% of 30, so that'll be 15,000. You borrowed 10. Margin available is still 5,000, so far there's no problem. Now let's disregard for a moment the $3 threshold that some brokerage firms have. Let's say that your firm has a lower threshold and you're not going to have that problem. Let's put in, say, $2.50. And you can see even at $2.50, so it's 25, 12,005 will be half of that. That's the 50%. So you can still, from $6 down to $2.50, you have not generated a margin call. But you can see that your margin ratio is beginning to climb, and that's a danger zone. Let's go down more. We'll say 2.25. Even at $2.25, you've still got $1,250 margin, but you can see that your margin ratio is really getting up there. So let's go down to $2 and just get it over with. Now, what do we find at $2? 10,000 times 2 is 20. 50% of that is 10,000. That means that we can borrow 10,000, which is half of the account value, and we have borrowed that much. That tells you that $2 is your threshold where you are going to go into negative margin. So if we make that $1.80, it's not really painful when we're doing it on a computer screen, but if it's real, it would be really painful. All right, now we're going to see this is a negative margin situation. You can see the number here, when above 100%. That means that you have more debt than you have equity, and you're going to have to put this back into proper balance. So 18,000, 50% of that is 9. What's your problem? You've borrowed 10. You now have to come up with another $1,000 in your account to put this back in balance, where you would have 9,000 margin, but you've got debt of 10, so if you add $1,000 cash, it'd be 10 and 10. The other option is, if you don't respond to the margin call, then they're just going to sell some stock and try to put it back in balance. But that is a painful way to learn that lesson, because even if they sell some stock, they're selling it at very low prices. It may not actually solve the problem. Okay, let's try and take this example one step further. You can see right here in cell B13, you are going to get a margin call for 1,000. So they call, you don't answer. They sell 1,000 shares. And what's going to happen is you're now going to have 9,000 shares at 180, so 16.2. Half of that is 8,001. But your debt, well, then you take the 1,800, forget about commissions, we'll try to keep it simple. So your debt was 10,000 before, your margin debt minus the 1,800, 1,000 shares times $1.80. Your margin debt is now being reduced to 82, but unfortunately you still have $100 of excess margin that you must either put up $100 in cash, or they're going to sell another 1,000 shares, as an example. You sell 2,000, so then your 10,000 would be 18 and 18 to be 36, so your margin debt is down to 64. So you actually have $800 more margin available, but you've reduced your share total from 10,000 down to 8. So I highly recommend, if you can learn to create this file, and just by putting it on the screen, and what you would want to do is make sure that when you put it on, not from this point, but let's say at the start of the video, that all the numbers are exact, because then you know your formulas are correct. So I'm going to beta test this and give it to a couple of friends, the 10-minute video, and see if they can actually recreate the account by putting in the proper formulas. Really valuable little account.